everybody. I'm here to just quickly share an exciting program that we're very proud and pleased to offer, something that's been developed as we seek to continue to support our clients in a more virtual, remote and socially distanced environment. So first, before I quickly share this program, I want to have you all ask yourselves, do you ever find yourself needing a break or just a moment to recharge? I can't see hands, but I imagine there's a lot of them that are up. And are you ever concerned that the person you're caring for is socially isolated or yourself as well? Again, can't see hands, but I'm sure many of those are up. And these days we understand it can be a challenge to make time for yourself or to facilitate human connection for yourself or your loved one that you're caring for. Yet both are so essential. And with our Take a Break, Make a Connection program, we want to enable you to do just that. So what is the program? It's quite simple, really. We have a great group of very passionate and trained volunteers, and we match a volunteer with a person with dementia based on aligning language, schedule, and interests. And our matches connect virtually or over the phone and engage in meaningful social interaction and cognitive stimulation, whether it's 30 minutes or an hour, once a week or a couple of times a month, a conversation or a fun activity. This time where your loved one is engaged can provide an opportunity for you as a caregiver to take that much needed break to refresh and recharge, or it can be an opportunity for you to join the conversation and have meaningful social engagement yourself as well. So it's a very flexible program that we can really adapt to your unique circumstances and what you're looking for, whether it's social engagement or taking that break. If you are interested in learning more or would like to sign up, we have lots of great information on our website. You can visit the virtual and remote program section of the website and you'll find the Take a Break, Make a Connection program there, as well as a sign up form to provide some key information to enable us to make a good match and to prepare the volunteer as well. Or if you'd like to have more information and ask questions, you're welcome to email me directly. I'm going to leave the link to the Take a Break program in the Zoom chat as well, and my email as well, or you're welcome to contact a dementia care coach if you'd like to learn more. So thank you so much for your time and consideration. I hope to hear from some of you very soon, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the Dementia Basics session here today. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I hope that you can see my title page here, the caregiver contribution. Actually, no, yeah, the caregiver contribution. I saw the 2020 and I realized I hadn't put the month, but no big deal. Choose your battles, kind of thing. So my name is Kelly Wilkinson, and thank you so much, Janice, for introducing one of our really amazing social and recreational programs. We've seen a lot of really great results. It's a sense of companionship. There is an amount of respite in it for the caregiver. So do check it out and do explore the program if it's something you might be interested in. So I'll just move one of my books here because I'm constantly just swarmed in them. There's no point in having furniture. I could just stack them up. So the information, some of the information has been sourced from a report that's released by goodness gracious, Statistics Canada, and it's called The Portrait of Caregivers 2012. But they recently released on their website a new report for 2018. Oh, sorry, I'm just seeing here that we have our handout number 3 provided for this online session. Thank you. Yes, like I said, so it's anybody can go to the Canada Stats website and review the full report, which is incredibly interesting, and I find it broadens your view of what kind of, caregiver community is out there in Canada and in Ottawa. So we're going to take about, 30 to 40 minutes to go over a few slides to talk about what the caregiver does, who is the caregiver, and what does that role and what do those responsibilities tend to look like. So hopefully today I'll introduce you a bit to the Dementia Society's dementia community of caregivers and persons with dementia. A lot of really wonderful people out there. With all that said, let's get started. Oh, and I think we might have mentioned there'll be questions in the end, and I look forward to answering any situational questions, keeping in mind if you do put them over chat, everybody will see the question, and I'll also answer through the chat, but also through the audio, I guess you would call it. So what is a caregiver? What is the definition of caregiver? And I see I'm really great with my graphics because that little bubble was supposed to come after. Again, choose your battles. Here we go. So, a caregiver, for the purposes of Dementia Basics, this educational program, part 6, which, kudos for sticking around or, just taking part of it. I think it's a wonderful opportunity for growth and knowledge. So quickly, so it's the person that provides either direct care, either paid or unpaid. And you can see a list of examples here. And then I added a few things. So being a caregiver, especially if you're a caregiver to a parent, a spouse, a family member, so on, somebody who is very close, holds, great value to you. It can be really complex and layered. At times you're playing daughter, you're playing spouse, and at other times, you're kind of focused on completing a care need task or, something within the routine that's really instrumental to the person's well-being. So in that case, in that way, it's very complex and it's very layered. And we often, as a dementia care coach, I often work with people in just trying to organize those layers a little bit, because when we can kind of understand what our barriers and hurdles might be, it's a little bit easier to be patient, understanding, to have more clarity. It can also be very physically and emotionally taxing. And I want to make something very, 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 very clear. It doesn't equate to your capacity of resiliency, if that makes any sense. For instance, if emotionally, like in your history, you experienced trauma and now you're being put in a very stressful situation with high responsibility, then you may notice that you may feel more emotionally taxed, more so than somebody who might not have had that history. So we have to kind of think of who we are as an individual and how this role might impact pieces of that. And if they are, well, there's supports, there's counseling, your dementia care coach, friends, family, your loved one who has dementia. So there are supports out there if that is the case. It can also be the most In the same token too, although physically, emotionally taxing, it can be extremely fulfilling and rewarding. A lot of times I hear daughters and sons speak about how they've been able to kind of complete a circle in one way, that they've been able to care for their parent in the same way that they had cared for them, kind of just returning, like closing that circle, which is a really beautiful gift, I think. And it can elicit a lot of self change, growth, understanding of yourself, of how you fit into family, of how other members, how they support. So it's a very interesting journey that very much affects not only the dyad, which is the caregiver, and the care recipient, which is in this case the person with dementia, but it can also affect you personally, and also how you may see the world, as well. And, along with the complexity and the layers and, the physical and emotional investment, and there becomes a need because it's the first time that, you're doing this. In a lot of cases, it is the first time. So, with all of this said, what do we do? So that's my little box. So education, intern, intra, personal skills. So how you see yourself inside, but also how you connect and see others, and then also through communication, either through your communicating your needs, or learning how to communicate for the needs of your loved one. So I hope that little bubble made sense. It was a last ad, and I actually see in the next slide we have another one, so we'll see how it goes. So this just talks a little bit about some of the types of responsibilities that fall under caregiving. And for some that are listening, you may be able to just check off a few of those. You may be able to check off all of them, or just some of the time. Some days, you may check off, but all to say is that it involves a lot of responsibility, a lot of learning, and for some, like it's just, it works better when you can do this with somebody, who, either a friend who's had a parent who's gone through the same journey and has capacity to be there and help you, or a dementia care coach, or just somebody within your community. So some of these responsibilities, care coordinator, and that is a familiar title, I'm sure, for some, because the local health integration network, which is the Champlain region, which we're in, they have care coordinators. But for some of you who are caregivers, you'll play the role of, making sure each appointment is made, transportation is available, that they're all prepared and ready to go. There's recreational coordinators, so, especially with this COVID pandemic thing, a lot of caregivers are having to find ways, to be creative, to still be stimulated, have, conversation or communication. Also advocates, so speaking on behalf of the person with dementia, ensuring that their needs are being met appropriately. This is a big piece, and sometimes it takes a little bit of time to develop that voice and knowledge of the healthcare system as well. And there's also some language too, that can be used. Like, for instance, if you say, well, their activities of daily living are no longer independent. That's a quick way of saying that most of the activities they do to sustain their well-being are no longer being done or completed on their own. In that case, appropriate support is then offered. You play nurse, of course, medication compliance, or even just, overseeing to make sure, okay, yes, each dust side or each pocket was good. Okay, great, all the way to, breaking out the medication and bringing out the water, ensuring that they're taking it at each time. Or, you're visiting a long-term care residence, or assisted living residence where you're supporting the medication as well. Toileting, dressing, housekeeper, property manager, accountant, and then at the very end, I always put it at the end because it's very, very realistic that this is the role, the responsibility that's the last most of the time. So being a partner, being a parent, being a grandparent, sister, brother, friend, oh, missed a comma, or child. So an important part of, learning about this journey and who you are as a caregiver is also how this is going to impact you as that in that capacity too. So especially as a partner with future plans and things you wanted to do, there's some loss and some grief there. And so it's just, I'm amazed every single day by hearing some of the things that are in this list and not that caregivers are doing. It's absolutely incredible. And if I ask them, how did they do it? The answer is usually because, they have to. You get through it. You just kind of do, moment by moment. So that's the scope of caregiving responsibilities that we kind of assumed. That's a really fast, quick way through it. And with some of these roles and responsibilities, keep in mind that you can find people to take over these responsibilities, right? So you can still sustain these roles as parent, partner, sister, brother, or you may yourself just want to, continue being responsible for some of these things within reason, of course. So, okay, so we understand some of the tasks and responsibilities that are associated with being a caregiver, but what are our goals? Like, what are we trying to accomplish here? The first one is my person with dementia is safe and can stay as long as possible in their home environment if that's what they want, right? If you're able to have a conversation with this person to understand, what they wish in the future, that's wonderful to have, because then you can honor those wishes, when it comes to a time when if they need more care, we can just up the care at home instead of making a move. But definitely keeping them safe, right? We understand that there's a particular environment they may want, but that environment may not be safe. So what can we do to take pieces of that environment that means so much to you and just bring them into a safer space or a safer environment? A lot of times, kitchen equipment comes up with the idea of safety. Hoarding comes up too. So just, basically hoarding is just wanting to feel safe within your home by using a lot of things around you, kind of like a blanket of things. And if you think about it, a lot, people can't rush in that way because they get stuck in, so it's like a security safety measure in a way. So another goal is my person with dementia is stimulated, happy, and has social activities, of course, set at their level and pace. And I might just add their temperament, because if they're an individual who may not have enjoyed social activities, and I'm doing air quotes, social activities in 2020, then they may not enjoy, being put in front of the video and having a coffee kind of group thing. So we want to make sure that they're stimulated and happy and have social activities, whatever that means to them and whatever really brings a smile to their face, but that we're helping them, use their brain and try to solve problems that fit to their level and at their pace, because then there's self-confidence, self-efficacy, all those really wonderful, great feelings. Another one that I add that may not be so explicit is maintaining and reframing relationships with family and friends. So some caregivers might have to support relationships between the person with dementia and others. And an example of this is when they're first diagnosed, a lot of family members may feel apprehensive or uncertain about what that means, and they may not want to come around. So it may take the caregiver just to explain things, with all this great knowledge from Dementia Basics, and just explain kind of what's going on and how to still connect, because you can still do that. It's just going to look different than how it was, or it's going to change, but we just have to be creative and continue to find those ways to connect and continue to maintain and even strengthen those relationships. So another goal is to reduce, of course, emotional pain and suffering. I say, choose your battles a lot, because sometimes, you can't talk through emotional pain sometimes when it comes to dementia. It's more of a loving, comforting, warm energy, touch, a presence, and some people, may not have that kind of temperament. So it's really, you're really learning and growing from all spheres. But another goal is definitely to reduce their emotional pain and suffering. One that comes up quite often is in that regard is when you make a move, or when your person with dementia, because of safety or health reasons, needs more care, and they have to make that move, and they're not wanting to make that move. We always have to keep in mind safety, health, and happiness. And if it means their safety and happiness, then we have to work with the emotional pain, because there's a reason, behind it all. And it's to reduce suffering in the long term. But there's, there's ways to kind of, actually, what I say, that could be a whole other webinar, and I think we have that on YouTube, is how dementia impacts behavior. But having a lot of understanding of how dementia impacts mental health, temperament, and how they communicate is extremely important, because sometimes emotional pain could just be, a cry out to a caregiver, or a lot of times we see anger, and it's actually because there's a lot of trust, and they know that person won't leave no matter, what they kind of say. Doesn't mean it's right. It just kind of makes more sense that way. Prevent health problems for the person with dementia, of course. Maintain some form of mobility, movement. And then I always add this one for caregivers. They won't say it, but maintain sense of self and health as a caregiver. And for some that have difficulty with that sentence, because it means taking energy, taking it from the person with dementia and putting it back onto self, which can be feel greedy, or you can feel guilty. But what I tend to see is that energy is always returned back to the person with dementia, or the person with dementia is benefited somehow because their caregiver is now feeling better, had some time to take a breath, had some time to kind of, pair where your mind is with where your body, feel some alignment, when you're rushing throughout the day, and then you finally sit down and you're like, oh, there I am, kind of thing. So I would really, really love this to be one of your goals, whoever's listening today, that you maintain a sense of self and health as a caregiver, whatever that may mean to you. Oakley dokley, let's move on. So all of the goals that I went through here. So to reach these goals, or this goal, caregivers may need to take some training and education. So you've come to Dementia Basics, which is great. And now we have other educational programs that are online and available. So if you want to go more in depth in some specific aspects of, the Dementia Basics content that you learned, looking into some of these other programs and videos would be very helpful. So supporting dementia, living with dementia, dementia and COVID challenges, that's a YouTube video we have online, and dementia and behaviors. So learn about your person with dementia's abilities, wants, and needs. Of course, it's gonna, your mode of communication to get this information may change, but it's important to kind of understand, how much they can take in information-wise when you're speaking to them with, details and specifics. And I always think about cost versus benefit when I want to share something to a loved one with dementia. Is that what is going to be their cost of learning this, and what is going to be their benefits? Oftentimes I always come up with the conclusion of, okay, the benefit lies with me. The cost may lie with that person. So an example of that is for, the autonomy of the individual and the dignity of the individual. I think it's very important that I explain that they have dementia, that I tell them, because I don't think they realize, or I think they've kind of forgotten and they're not sure what's going on. But the last time we told them, they became very, very distressed, and it took a very long time to bring them down, to calm them, to make them feel better. We had to do some changes to their care, whatever it may be. What we've learned is that the cost is the person becomes distressed, and the benefit is, for this instance, they've learned of their diagnosis and now they're grieving their diagnosis, and then they've now forgotten about their diagnosis. So going through that emotional process again and again would be very costly, to this person. And the benefit is really, I think, I'm protecting their autonomy and their dignity. But we respect their autonomy and dignity through different ways, and also respecting some of their wishes and making sure the spirit of those wishes is still held. Navigation and understanding of our healthcare system. So you can look to your LIN care coordinator or your dementia care coach, or anyone really at the Dementia Care Society to talk about the healthcare system and the ins and outs of it. With the pandemic, there's a lot on hold, and we try to stay abreast on all the new information that comes our way. So connect with us and ask us those questions. Is there anything new about what's going on with the day programs? Or we'll do our best to get the most recent information there. But knowing and understanding about the healthcare system is really, really helpful, because let me see if I can just go back here. For advocacy, for medication, toileting, dressing. There's lots and lots of supports out there in our community, and sometimes they're not always readily seen. So if there's a particular thing you might need support or help on, throw that question out at us, and we'll pair you or match you with a good service that would help you with what you're looking for. So another goal is connecting and creating community of support with professional friends and or family. You may need to do some self-understanding of what what your limits may be, things you hope to learn, things that might be difficult, what things tend to help when you're having a difficult time? What has helped in the past? A lot of caregivers journal too, because you can keep track of somebody's dementia that way by how they're functioning, their memory, their day-to-day activities, but also, if you're writing about how you're doing at the same time, and you can use that as a tool to go back and see what you've gained as a caregiver as well. Not only, the fulfillment of being there for your loved one or the person you're working with, but to know that you've grown as a person and as a soul as well. Support in the home and in the community. So there's a lot of support out there, and it's there for a reason. You can create a bit of a team and a plan for yourself and for the person with dementia. But there's personal support workers, there's telephone assurance programs, so that's when somebody can just throw a call out there and see how that person is doing, and then you can get some feedback on what the call was like. Home maintenance, I put maintain, home cleaning, and the Snow Go program. So these are just a few examples of some of the supports that are in the community. Building a supportive network to help with significant transition, so a transition plan and supports. And of course, advanced care planning. So you may have to look at POA, conversations about wishes, and looking at roles and responsibilities for family members or friends or, individuals that want to be involved in the care. And of course, review and revise future plans. So next slide, we're going to go over a few statistics, caregiving in Canada. Okay, so from that report that I had shared with you in the beginning, one of the pieces was caregiving was not limited to helping family members. The second most common category of care recipient were close friends, colleagues, and neighbors at 16%. So what this 16% tells me that, if there's neighbors and family and friends that want to help and support you as caregiver, that's, something that you should look into, because they can be helpful allies. Oh, and I do have the social survey down there. So when they spoke to caregivers, Canadian caregivers, 15 years and older, they found there was a few tasks and responsibilities that were most popular, or that the caregiver put most of their time into. So one was transportation, appointments, social activities, groceries, any care needs or out-of-pocket things. Meal preparation were among the most common caregiver tasks, of course, because there's 3 meals a day. But there's also lovely meal programs out there that are just thirsty for new people to take advantage of their meals. So do check in with one of us to see, if you're interested in meal preparation, there's organizations that have catchment areas. So we can look into, okay, what's your address? What's your catchment area? Okay, here's the phone number, and this is what you're going to be looking for. Alongside transportation and meal preparation was also household work, scheduling and coordinating appointments, managing finances, helping with medications or treatments, and providing personal care. So this statistic really always jumps out at me. So nearly 9 in 10 caregivers, which 90%, no, 88% reported spending time with the person, talking with and listening to them, cheering them up, or providing some other form of emotional support. So nearly all the caregivers that they surveyed, 88% of them said that counseling, or attending, or being a companion was something, that all of them do. So when you're giving a lot of emotional support, especially if you're caregiving for most of the day, leaves little time for yourself to have that returned reciprocal emotional support. Your loved one may give you that in return, but a lot of the focus is on them, the majority of the time. So let's move into compassion fatigue. Just a moment. I'm just going to take a sip of my tea here. So compassion fatigue is the physical, emotional, or mental exhaustion due to prolonged stress. So when you're caregiving, you're assuming the responsibilities and tasks of somebody else, even at times wishes, thoughts, beliefs, and that load, that weight, along with caring for yourself, over time can create prolonged stress. And when we see prolonged stress, we eventually see the body saying, okay, listen. I've been trying to tell you in very subtle ways that we need some time to just take it easy, just for ourselves. But you haven't been listening. So I'm going to have to up. And you may not be listening because, of course, you're caring for somebody, but your body's going to say, listen, I'm going to up the ante and I'm going to increase these signs and symptoms so that you're going to take a break and finally listen to me. And if you're like me, you're very stubborn. And it takes my body very large and big messages for me to get the hint. But, everybody's different. And, for some, it's a learning process. So, eventually I'll learn to catch it sooner. But if you do catch it sooner, it just gives you more time and clarity to kind of manage it and organize it and get some clarity around it. So that's why we want to catch, compassion fatigue and then burnout sooner rather than later. And I do talk to a few caregivers that, they relate how much they care for, how much they don't care for themselves. How should I word this? They think that a measure of their love is by how little they care about themselves, or that they just don't have the capacity to even entertain thinking about themselves. And that's when I think, okay, something's going on there, as a bereavement counselor, I would think, oh, there's some grief there, that they're not deserving of their attention or their space or their time. So some questions that you can ask yourself is, I always start with, wait a minute, and I do put up my one finger, my index finger, wait a minute. Have I taken the time I needed to refuel my compassion tank? So you might want to do this, when you finally get some time at night or when you have a moment, say, have I taken the time in the past I've needed to refuel this compassion tank? Was it a matter of I just didn't have the time and space, or was something else going on there? When was the last time I relaxed? Truly, really relaxed. For some, that might be, I have this wonderful, energetic, fit friend who finds relaxation is doing a yoga class. For me, relaxation is eating a family bag of chips, on the couch once in a blue moon kind of thing. So very different things, but we both try to honor what makes sense and what works for our particular self. And it's not very brain healthy, body healthy to eat a family bag of chips, but sometimes it calls for it, and I'll just leave it at that. So what does relaxation, all to lead to this question, what does relaxation look like to me, and to honor that? And do I feel I'm allowed to relax? And if no, why? And then also, how will relaxing help my person with dementia? So those are great examples of questions you can answer in a journal, or just, thinking to yourself when you have a moment of time. So that's a little bit on compassion fatigue burnout. Can take time and practice to understand the first few signs of what compassion fatigue may look like. And depending on the situation, there's factors that can affect your experience. So make those stress levels higher. So the progression of dementia, if that dementia is happening quickly and that learning curve is really, really steep, that's going to affect you, of course, your experience. You may need more supports. You may need to reach out a little bit more, use those baskets of support that mean the most to you. And you may learn, have to reach out and learn a lot more quickly. So specific behaviors of the person with dementia. So depending on what kind of dementia may be, there may be some more challenging behaviors that you might have to navigate. Your access to support. So who's in your ring? Who's supporting you? Who's on your team? Can you access those people when you need them? Informal or limited support networks. So, friends that may say, oh, just tell me what I can do to help. Tell me what I can do to help. But the friends that are, showing up, oh, you can't show up at the door, but, friends that are, offering a little bit more specific support based on what they've listened to, they might be the supports you want to keep a little bit closer. Caregiver, person with dementia characteristics and temperament, everybody is different. There's different histories, there are different relationships there. So depending on, how you manage stress, how you problem solve, how you function, how you use your executive functioning skills. So these, can all affect your experience. The nature of the relationship, financial challenges, and other familial responsibilities and challenges. So these things can all affect your stress. So when you're thinking about the things you've accomplished as a caregiver, I want you to also think about all these factors, and I want you to say, wow, despite some of these, I've still been able to accomplish what I've had, and maybe I might just, see if I could get support with a few of these. So a few indicators of burnout, so fatigue, sleeplessness, whatever's impacting your functioning, your day-to-day functioning and happiness would be an indicator. So an example for me would be when I stop listening to music. For me, that's an indicator not of burnout, but compassion fatigue. That means that I'm in my head a lot and I'm not filling that space and that time with music. I'm filling it with overrun thoughts. So that's just an example of compassion fatigue indicators. So just take a moment to look at these, maybe take note, and you can do some reflection with these later on. One I would like to highlight is hypervigilance. So this is when, you're just always on guard. You're always ready to go. You're always, prepared as if something is going to come your way. So just be mindful if you're constantly in this stress state, it can have an impact to your physical health and well-being. So important, please listen to me, caregivers, to check in with your own doctors and let them know how you're doing too. Now what, right? I've said all of these things. Now what? Caregiver resiliency. So resiliency is basically what's in your toolbox, what gets you through tough situations. And this toolbox is really built up throughout the lifetime. It's not a fully stocked toolbox that you kind of inherit when you're born, but it's built through experience, through time, through learnings. And this in itself is truly one of the biggest learning experiences, as weird as it sounds. And your resiliency can depend on a number of factors. So your own health, the family dynamics, so the relationship between, all the members who are involved. Is it healthy? Is it maladaptive? Is it, mental and emotional status? So if there's history of depression, anxiety, this could affect your toolbox and being able to, see that there's a problem, whip open that toolbox, pull out the right tool and use the tool. Culture, religion, spirituality, community involvement, and daily routine. So there is a caregiver resiliency talk that we have on YouTube, and that really dives into it. And what I'll just do is go over a few different pieces of caregiver resiliency with you now, just so you can get a flavor of it. And I do realize that realistic acceptance, social supports, and healthy choices spells out RASH. And it's always, I used to have another facilitator that did this talk with me, and we always would joke that it's a rash, caregiver resiliency. But it's about being realistic and acceptance. It's a tricky word. It's not what you would think. So having social supports in your toolbox and having healthy, well-informed, good choices. So realistic, and Dementia Basics I find really helps with this particular part. So being realistic of what this is, what this looks like, what help is going to be needed. So understanding what is happening, and to establish, but more so to, more so to establish your expectations, and be prepared for both good and bad days, even good moments and good bad days. But that toolbox, it will always be there for you and will always be there for you. And the bad days won't be every day, but people are definitely there for you, and there's a community out there that's there for you for those really bad days. So acceptance. So change will be constant, and acceptance happens throughout. Change is the one thing we can trust within this journey, and it will happen. And acceptance really happens as the changes happen. It's not a phase that you hit. I mean, some people, sure, it is a phase you hit, and it is what it is, kind of thing. But for some, it's when each change happens, or when each time I had to take on another responsibility, you kind of have a moment of, okay, this is reality now. This is what it is. Social support is incredibly critical. This is a type of social support because, I'm talking about some of the experiences that I've noted from other caregivers. You're learning a bit about, what it's going to look like as a caregiver, what it already looks like for you as a caregiver. So formal programming, the Dementia Support Program and community programs. The Dementia Society is creating grief services now. So, complex grief, ongoing grief, as well as late stage grief and end of life grief. And also informal peer support. So, we have a lot of great support groups, but the most important piece is that there's people within that group that you can connect with, either in the group or outside of the group, that share the same language, may share the same experiences, so it's just a little bit easier to connect and to kind of just hit it off and make this bond and connection of support. Healthy choices. So caregiver stress is considered a health risk. So we have to eat well for whatever that means for our bodies. Staying hydrated. Please don't think about my family bag of chips as that first point. Staying hydrated is extremely important because it gives us clarity, it makes us feel organized. Practicing good sleep hygiene as best you can. I know it's not going to be perfect. Exercising daily, whether that be a walk, whether that be walk in place, chair yoga, deep breathing exercises, anything that gives you a sense of activity and kind of getting that your heart rate up a little bit. And then I just made a note, caregivers often forget to make their own doctor's appointments. I don't mean that somebody has to, make them for them, but they just forget about their own health. But we have to remember this is a dyad, right? This is a couple, it's not just them, it's not just me, this is both of us, and they're gears together. They both need to be working well, So what this slide is just trying to spirit is that the dementia caregivers are really there to listen to it all, hear it, kind of see what you're working with and help you to kind of organize it, create a plan, get some clarity, some next steps. And then we always bounce it back. It's always reciprocal. We're always collaborative. We want to make sure you can do it. It makes sense. It's going to help. So a few things we could help with, especially if you're feeling really stressed, overburdened, heavy, weighted. We can facilitate medical referrals, so supports in the community, either for the person with dementia to talk to somebody or you yourself. Identify community resources, so similar, and coordinate in-home services. So if somebody's telling me, I don't know, like I'm doing this, this, and this, I don't think I can do it anymore, say, okay, I hear you're doing this, this, and this. Is this right? Yes, this is all I'm doing. I said, okay, would you be interested in getting some help for some of these? And then, of course, depending on the answer, then we'd help facilitate that warm transfer. And also coordinating in-home services. So we work with the Champlain Lynn a lot. So if you call us and there's been people, I've talked to who said, I think my toolbox is completely empty. That's okay, because you have the box to put the tools in. So that's where we're going to start. So, don't hesitate to give us a call and to speak to those that you trust and you love. So this just talks a little bit more of what we do as a dementia care coach, and it's also available online. Our website has just blown up and broadened itself in terms of what's available virtually and online. So please don't hesitate to just go and explore. And that's just a few of the programs that we have, but it's a very shortened list. There's much more than that. All right, so we're going to open up to questions now. I'm just going to put it back on and display settings. So I'm just going to put it back on this slide, and I just advise you to go to the Q&A section there. That's on the bar at the top, and this is where you can go ahead and ask any questions that you may be wondering. And I can go ahead and answer either in that window or verbally. So let me just take a look here. Can you put of course I can. So there we go. So if you dial, so a message will come on when you dial 613-523-4004. You're just going to dial 2 to reach our intake line. So there's always somebody that's going to be on this quote unquote intake line. So if your dementia care coach is not available, you can still reach somebody. And along those same lines, we have a talk function that's available on our website now. I wonder if I can show you. And this is where you can just type in your questions. Just sometimes easier than calling, especially if you're having a hard time, I think. So I'm just going to pull up our website here. And then I'm going to share it with. Oh, that's great. How do we make contact with a dementia care coach? So it's as easy as just giving us a call and say, hi, I would love to speak to a dementia care coach. I haven't worked with one. So you can just refer yourself and ask and speak with somebody. We also, we're available 8:30 to 8 o'clock Monday to Thursday, and then 8:30 to 4 o'clock on Fridays. So it's hard to see against the white background here, so my apologies. But we have the, if you need to help, simply reply to this message. We are online and ready to help. And there's a dementia care coach that's attached to that as well. So if we go on to on-demand learning, hopefully it's very quick, thank you. So we have the Science of Dementia, which is a 2-hour lecture by Dr. Knofel. So it's a great summary of the dementia basics if you wanted to share with anybody. We also have the long-term care moving and making 3 great videos, easy to watch at the end of the day. And then we have some videos around listening skills, approaching somebody, reducing anxiety, and then webinars here. And that's the challenge of COVID-19, the one that was in the earlier slide. And I think, and I wanted to show you the Dementia Society YouTube. So you can find all our past videos all here, and you can search. So you can just put behaviors if you wanted to, or emotions, or I don't know, medication, see what comes up. Another really great resource is the Champlain Healthline, and this is the last thing I'm going to show you. This is wonderful because it's our Champlain Health region, and it just goes through all the different lists and services that are available. So an example would be, adult day programs. So if we clicked on that, you can see all the different adult day programs, but we can also, apologies, I wanted to find the personal support, but what you would do is find the correct list, and then you would just put in your postal code, and it'll show you the catchment area, the one that's closest. Yeah. So those are the ones I wanted to show. I'm going to stop the share, and I have a chat. I'm just going to, okay. So it's 6 o'clock. I wanted to thank everybody for joining me for the part 6, way to go. And thank you so much for participating. I hope you, oh, thank you. I hope you have a good evening and stay warm. Oh, and you can find my contact information available on the website too, so do not hesitate to contact me, please. My mother-in-law is coming for 3 weeks. Can I access your services during that time? Yes, of course. There is no timeline to our services, so it's really how long your journey takes. But you just call us when you're ready.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Kelly, for the presentation today. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. This is the end of Dementia Basics Online October. We will have a November session starting November 16th. If you're interested in attending and asking more questions to the experts, please register online. If you need a dementia care coach, please connect with us. And for more information on education programs and support, visit our website, dementiahelp.ca, or register to our weekly roundup. And have a nice day, everyone.